Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is the second in a series of colloquia, kind of webinar type programs we're running called Pandemic Perspectives. And what we're doing here is really kind of aiming to give some historical perspective on the current events that we're all living through. We're also, in doing this, giving you a virtual tour of some of the artifacts as well as archives that are held by the National Museum of American History and by a couple of our other colleagues, Smithsonian museums. It's really an opportunity for us to kind of take you behind the scenes. Some of the things you're going to see are on exhibit. The majority of them are actually in storage because, of course, about 99% of the materials we collect on behalf of the American people are in storage at any given moment. So here's a chance to see things you might not otherwise see. And the last thing we really want to kind of do with the audience, I see we've got about 140 people right now, is kind of push the thinking about what we should be collecting to capture what you're experiencing right now during this pandemic. I want to start with a couple recommendations for your Zoom settings. So for those of you not really familiar with it, we're in a conference mode, workshop mode. If you move your mouse around, you should see a little kind of gray screen. It's usually in the bottom in Zoom. And there's a button there called Q&A. If you click that, that gives you the opportunity to ask questions. We're doing this in a format that's intentionally not a lecture. And so we ask you, we invite you, we suggest you ask questions at any point. And then in terms of the view, which is these three little dots, we're suggesting you set it up with the main screen showing, the slides that we have, and then the speaker to the right. You can set it however you want for your own setting, but just click on that and play it around. Today, we're discussing what people did in the past when forced to stay home. Toys, games, parlor, and living room activities for families, they've all responded to disease epidemics, but actually more often it's a case of people doing activities that were already popular when an epidemic hit. We're going to look across quite a long stretch of history today, from the early American Republic to board games from the mid-19th century, to the period of the 1918 pandemic, to summers in the 1950s when polio often prevented children from playing outside, up to the present day. And as we do this, we very much do want to recognize and emphasize that throughout history, not everyone has had the luxury of staying home, had the resources to buy toys and play. Essential workers, especially people of color, have worked through the current pandemic, but in fact, historically, that was as true or even more true as we see today. With that, I want to introduce our panelists, and then we'll get into it. Ken Cohen is a scholar and expert on early America, sports, and political culture. He's a consulting curator in the cultural and community life at the National Museum of American History, an associate professor and director of museum studies at the University of Delaware's Department of History. Carlene Stevens is a curator in the Division of Work and Industry at the National Museum of American History, an expert on the history of science and technology, especially robots, timekeeping, and recorded sound. She's led numerous exhibits and projects at the Smithsonian, ranging from digital recovery of some of the earliest recorded sound to the time and navigation exhibit at the Air and Space Museum, among many others. And third, Richard Levy is an eminent toy and game inventor and deal maker for other inventors in the industry. He's brought over 200 toys and games to the public, working with various game publishers. I don't want to give too many of them away yet because you're going to see several of his games in the next hour. His career started at Paramount Pictures and included a stint in the federal government when he led the project to develop the U.S. Information Agency's WorldNet television and film service. And there we go. Okay, so those are our panelists. And we're going to start actually with a kind of quixotic, quirky story. So when we think about children and pandemic memory, everyone is familiar with Ring Around the Rosie, a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. So I want to invite our panel to kind of comment on this. What's the history of this and how does it link? We're often told this links to the plague. Who's gonna...
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. So as somebody who sort of studies the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, this sort of is a story that falls into the time frame I'm familiar with. And as Arthur said, lots of people sort of connect this to the plague in the 17th century in England. And it's conceivable, but the image you see on the right here comes from the first American published version, which is 1881, and the first documented English version is only a few years earlier. So if in fact Ring Around the Rosie is a documentation of the plague or something left over from or remembering even the plague from somebody's living memory, it basically went unnoticed for a couple hundred years. Anthropologists, folklorists have studied this one pretty thoroughly, including some folks at the Library of Congress. And so they have argued that this actually falls into a whole separate pattern of games that children play together that are kinetic, about moving up and down or side to side, and that there are versions of this poem with the same meter, with roughly the same sort of actions, going around in a circle and then going up and down, that are in all sorts of European countries that emerge over the course of the 19th century. And none of those other ones make references in ways that have led those countries' citizens to suggest that those things came out of the plague. So it could just be a situation where, there's a practice that develops and then it gets attached at a later point to something that it was never originally connected to. And so that's currently the sort of scholarly thinking about Ring Around the Rosie, which in some sense sort of pulls it away from from pandemics and talking about public health. I would actually argue that it doesn't need to necessarily be specifically about the plague in order for it to still shed light on shorter lifespans, dangers and threats of death that children faced. Orphanage rates were much higher in the United States and in England in the 19th century than they are today. And so, I think it's still conceivable that there are, that the phrasing is referencing death and rebirth in a variety of ways for a variety of reasons that may not be specifically about the plague years of the 1600s.
Thank you, Ken. And we've got a request that you kind of move your mic a little closer. I guess the audio didn't come through so great for you, but we'll fix it in the next. It's all right.
No problem.
Thank you, because I think that is an interesting insight. We've all heard that this is fundamentally about the plague, but it is interesting how the plague, above all, has lingered in cultural memory in so many ways and kind of reappears. And so it's kind of one of the interesting questions. In fact, the last slide we're going to see at the very end of this is going to show what some of the kids are doing today digitally to play together, to swoop up and down. And it'll be intriguing to see whether that leaves a strong cultural imprint as well. Ken, we're actually going to stick with you for a moment to talk here about baseball in the mid-19th century.
Yeah, so this is a engraving of an image that came out of Harper's Weekly, which was a really popular magazine in the United States in the mid-19th century, of a baseball game taking place at a place called the Elysian Fields in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's now sort of at the north end of where Hoboken is today. I think there's a square still there called Elysian Square. That's all that's left. But it used to be a couple dozen acres that ran from the waterfront further back. And the Elysian Fields is really where baseball was codified. It's where the New York Knickerbockers sort of played their games. And it's most famous for these games in the 1840s that sort of codified the rules of baseball for the first time. But before that, so that was in the mid 1840s. And then by the time you get to this image in 1859, baseball is already emerging as an increasingly major spectator sport in the US. But if you go back before 1845, the Elysian Fields open in the 1810s and 1820s in stages. It gets bigger and bigger over time. But there are a series of cholera outbreaks in New York and up and down the U.S. East Coast in the 1830s. Cholera is a disease that is waterborne. And so baseball was not played at Hoboken in the Elysian Fields originally. It begins to be played at the Elysian Fields during this 1830s stretch, and gets big boosts during the cholera epidemic, when, as you can see from the picture here in the lower right, can people see my cursor when I move across it, or no? Okay.
No, but
So in the lower left, where you can see the carriage. So these are people of means, right, that have carriages, and the ladies are dressed in relatively high style for the late 1850s. You can see one is holding a parasol. And so it's wealthier people who come across from New York to sort of support the games, even in the 1830s. This image is from the 1850s, but even in the 1830s, it's this group coming across that sort of codifies baseball and takes it from a range of different ball and base games that it had emerged from, and that sort of organize it, creating schedules and sort of regular play over the course of the 1830s and 40s that leads up to the moment when the Knickerbockers are playing in the Elysian Fields. And so the cholera outbreaks sort of push baseball out from Manhattan, where the disease is rampant, and push people of means to get out of the city, as was happening during the pandemic. Earlier this year, there were lots of reports of people either buying houses further outside the city, or looking to recreate, outside of cities in parks. And so the same sort of thing is happening in the 1830s. And in a lot of ways, that's what creates a sort of institutionalized kind of baseball that is already in place then by the time this image gets created on the eve of the Civil War.
Right, right. And just so everyone knows, we're kind of starting with the outdoor sport, and I'm going to show one more now, which is from 1918. A lot of people have seen this photo over the course of the past 6 months. And from here, we're going to kind of shift gears and look at card and board games, and talk more about that dynamic. Ken, you brought this photo to my attention. I don't know if you or anyone else wants to comment on this. This is an American football game, and yet we see, an audience fully masked.
Yeah, and we may actually have, so Andy McNeil, who's the gentleman whose ancestor is pictured here in this row of three, himself went to Georgia Tech and is in possession of this photo, and has shared it with a number of individuals, and he actually may be with us here today, as we told him we were going to be using the photo. And so, during the 1918 flu pandemic, there were sporting events that went on in the U.S., and there are a number of images. This one has gotten a lot of notice over the course of the last 6 months, but there are a number of sporting events that feature people or even players wearing masks as part of their activities, as part of something that was either in some cases requisite, or that fans were choosing, or players, rarely actually players, but that fans were choosing to do. The exception to the players is there's a picture of a baseball game from 1918 that was taking place in, I forget which town in California. And there was a city ordinance that required mask wearing. And so even the players in that particular game, and so photos from that you may have seen also, because those have been making the rounds, because players were required to wear masks in order to be a part of that particular sporting event during the pandemic as well.
Right, right. And so with that, we're going to shift now to more indoor play, which was kind of the main theme of the session, and what we're going to focus in a little more carefully here. We're going to start with some playing cards. And in fact, we have a couple I want to show, and then spark some conversation across the panel. So the first is a set from around 1880, 1885. These are made of leather, I believe. And then a second one I want to show is 1996 Pokemon cards. So let me invite some comment and reflection on the history of card playing, but then also, what makes for a successful card game.
Ken, you may know this, but didn't cards start in China?
Yeah, I mean, it depends what sort of what you want to trace them to, but often that's sort of where the origin point
Because
is.
paper came from China.
And then yeah, and then there it's tied to sort of fortune telling in various ways and luck and divination in all sorts of ways. Sort of comes to Europe anyway.
Arab.
That's right, comes to Europe through Mamluk Egypt in the 14th century, in the 1300s. And it's interesting because Arthur sort of presented these games as indoor games, but of course both Pokemon, as you've seen in its variety of guises over the last decade, and this card and these cards, which are made out of hide, are durable and certainly were used outside as well as inside. So it's a little bit of a transition rather than just an indoor activity. These are Chiricahua or Western Apache playing cards, and the Western Apache sort of adapted the Spanish and Mexican playing cards and adapted the game of Monte, two-card Monte, which was very popular in Mexico in the 1700s and 1800s. And so the suits don't look the same because they're derived from Castilian, from Spanish, the four Spanish suits, as opposed to anglicized suits, right? So we have in the US now clubs, diamonds, spades, and hearts, right? But here it's clubs, swords, cups, and gold coins. And the cups are the arrows, are the stacked arrows that you see here. And so, so this sort of speaks to the range of peoples that adapt and appropriate and sort of borrow from other cultures in developing these games over time. And as Richard mentioned before, right, cards start in China. They're not the same by the time they get to the Arab world in the 1400s as they were in China previously. Europeans and different European cultures adapt them differently from Arab cultures, and then Native American peoples again. So many of these games have lifespans and ways of playing that evolve differently over time, and that's what these cards really speak to.
That's great. And I mean, the Pokemon deck I put up in part because we, in fact, also wanted to point out, Nintendo, a company today known to most people primarily for video games, in fact, had its origins in the late 19th century in Japan as a company that made playing cards. And I guess just a comment or question to the whole panel. So when I think of cards, it's typically a 52 card deck. It's very standardized, hasn't changed at all in my lifetime. And yet, Richard, we do get new games invented. I mean, someone came along and invented Uno not that long ago.
Yeah, we can talk about Uno. Uno was invented by a barber near Cincinnati, Ohio, and he invented the game. And then he went and got he raised $8,000. He made, I think it was something like 5,000 copies of it. One thing led to another, and it took off, and he started a company called International Games, which was acquired by Mattel in 1992, and Uno is the #1 selling card game in the world today. But however, I must say this, there are people riff on card games. So not to self-promote, but Go Fish, we're all familiar with Go Fish, right? So Go Fish, the name, the game Go Fish, the card game, right, for little kids. So we wanted to do something different. The game had never been tampered with in years. I mean, never been touched in years. It's always the same game. So we came up with a game called Go Fish You Wish. I won't get into the rules now, but the point is this is how these things transform over the years. Somebody takes a classic, puts a twist or a spin on it, and then you're off to the races with a new game.
Right, and so it is striking that cards have been with us, deep in recorded history, and yet opportunities to kind of invent new games all along. Our
those
next
things, I just wanted to add, a lot of times those adaptations aren't random, right? They may seem random, or they may seem like the product of one person's genius, right? But oftentimes they reflect different cultural values and different historical contexts, right? So card games evolve at different times amongst different peoples to have more or less luck vis-a-vis strategy involved in them, right? And there's a balance here between games like Monte or Pharaoh, which was popular in the United States at the same time, which are essentially betting on whether or not a card will have a same suit or be high. It's essentially a version of high-low. It's like higher or lower or the same suit or a different suit, as opposed to games like bridge or whist or that have a certain degree of strategy and longer-term tactics attached to them.
Well, our game was motivated by strictly marketing. We looked at the market. We saw that there were 19 or 20 different versions of Go Fish. They were all the same. The brand had tremendous brand equity with the consumers. So we figured, let's put a twist to it.
Great, great. And before we jump off of card games, we have a question basically saying, are you going to mention that card games were illegal in the United States for significant chunks of time? And I can't help but also toss in, the Stamp Act was sort of important for cards as well, I understand. Or, there were taxes put on cards during the colonial period that, the colonists, being proto-Americans were not into paying taxes.
Right. So thanks, Peggy, for that. So first of all, the answer to the first question is yes, there are lots of laws that are passed against playing cards, billiards, horse racing, all of these sorts of things that might attract gambling. And by the very fact that states were passing new laws against them every year for 60 years, that people weren't listening to the laws, right? So every one of these acts starts with, whereas the preceding act has not been faithfully enforced or executed. Like yes, there are laws against these things. They're oftentimes not enforced, and there are even court cases that are brought against people playing where the juries are just like, yeah, no, we're not prosecuting this, and they let the person go. So I talk about several of those appear in my book. So
one of the big card games, of course, was collecting baseball cards. You were talking about baseball earlier. Topps, huge leader in the field.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to shift to this amazing puzzle, which has, a blatantly racist, offensive cover on the box. But Ken, you brought this to my attention again. You should kind of take the lead, and then we'll have Carlene and Richard jump in.
Yeah, so puzzles are, jigsaw puzzles are sort of invented in the late 18th century in England in just this fashion. Well, racist, because they are maps, and they're often dealing with imperial acquisitions and sort of trying to teach kids in the home country, in the imperial country, about all of the different territories that their country is conquering. And so there are all sorts of racist representations in early jigsaw puzzles, but this is an American one that still harkens back to that origin, right? It's essentially a map that's cut up, and it's being used by kids at home to learn geography. And so on the one hand, puzzles have seen a huge boom during the pandemic in terms of market, and at the same time, their origins speak to a kind of homeschooled education that was central to how a lot of kids experienced education in the 19th century.
I did a little research on this to show you what's going on during the pandemic right now. So Ravensburger, well, overall, game and puzzle sales are up over 300%. But I found a specific to Ravensburger, a German board game company. They've seen U.S. puzzle sales soar 370%. The company hasn't seen anything like this in its 136-year history. In 2019, they sold 21 million puzzles globally and recorded an average rate of 7 puzzles a minute in North America. But now, with the pandemic, 20 puzzles per minute in North America.
And what makes that possible, what really makes that possible, right? These puzzles are pretty expensive. They're made out of wood. And what really makes that kind of explosion possible, right, is the shift to cardboard backing that happens actually in the Great Depression. Puzzle makers and game makers were short on, were looking for cheaper materials to allow people to be able to afford their goods as more and more people were on hard times. And so economic recession during the Depression, if not a pandemic, drives the technology to a more accessible place.
Yeah. So We had a question from the audience asking, what about people who live alone? What do they play? And obviously not baseball, but puzzles is one example. Richard, Ken, Carlene, I don't know if you want to comment. What other kinds of games do people living alone tend to play?
Cards work. You could play solitaire.
Sure, of course, cards. Exactly, cards and puzzles. Cards and puzzles. Well, today, of course, with electronics, we're going to get into that later on in the conversation. But if they have an iPad, there's a million things they can play.
Right.
Word game geek.
One other thing that absolutely jumps out, of course, is the cover, which is just kind of astonishing to my eyes, not being a 19th century historian. But I guess this is kind of a challenging question, but obviously it's reflecting something what's in the air at the time, how people portrayed and perceived Africans, African Americans, other minority groups. I'm just curious, do games ever kind of go on the leading edge of social and cultural change, or they tend to be more of a lagging indicator?
Well, board games today typically are licensed properties, frankly. These companies they're not necessarily reflecting culture the way they used to. Now it's whatever's hot on television, animated series, feature films, because that's also what the trade wants. Being the retailers.
Yeah, interesting.
I think that's a really great question, Arthur. I think, for me, I think games still often lag. You can find examples. You can always find examples that sort of buck the trend because the field is so.
But they don't make any money. And I donated a political game to the Smithsonian. Remember, Arthur? And that game probably sold about 3 copies, but it was political. It was the G. Gordon Liddy game. And I donated it to the museum. They didn't have one.
Right. So our
whoever did that probably sold 5 of them.
Yeah, the political game collection is really fabulous at the museum and has a range of games going back to presidential card games that are essentially meant to teach kids to memorize the presidential sequence in the late 19th century. But you've got all sorts of great ones. My favorite one is actually, there's a game called The Kennedys, which is like a mixture between like what Richard's talking about in terms of G. Gordon Liddy's game, which is like sort of trying to win at politics, but also Clue. So it's like a big mansion and everybody's trying to get into everybody else's papers, and they're trying to beat all the brothers are trying to beat each other to the presidency. So there's all sorts of these games.
Remember one thing, in those days, there was no Amazon, there was no internet. How you got the word out was basically through the Associated Press or newspapers or whatever. And those games were always covered. The political games were always covered. The games about wars were always covered, but they never sold enough. They never sold enough. And today they're in collections.
In some cases, they weren't even meant to be sold. So some of the political games that we have were devised essentially as campaign tools, right?
Fair
so they were more or less giveaways in an effort to try to promote a candidate as opposed to trying to sell them commercially.
Okay, so let's talk now about a couple of games that actually did sell incredibly well. So first, we have a mid-19th century checkered game of life. Ken's going to tell us a bit about. And then the follow-up, of course, is 100 years later, the game of life that many of us will remember from our childhoods, depending how old we are on this chat.
Well, I'll let Richard start with the checkered game of life, and I'll add a little context, I think, actually.
I'm sure you will. That'd be great. So in 1860, Milton Bradley, the man, was 24 years old, and he started the Milton Bradley, it was publishing and lithography company in Springfield, Mass. And he ran into financial problems. He had to figure out how to raise money. So what he did was, to keep the presses going, he invented and marketed a game called the checkered game of life, which you see on the left-hand side of the screen. He sold 45,000 copies of that game, which kept his company going. In 1959, when Milton Bradley, the company, hits its 100th anniversary, they want to do a commemorative game. They want something very special. So they call an inventor named Reuben Klamer. He's a friend of mine, a very, very nice guy. He lives out on the West Coast. They bring him in and they say, can you reimagine this game for us so we can use it for our 100th anniversary? And he came up with the checkered game, with the game of life, which is the one you find today. You can put some context on that.
Yeah, so this original version, right? You're getting into the same time period now as when we were talking about Ring Around the Rosie, right? And I mentioned how, you know, even if that doesn't specifically recall the plague, it recalls a different cultural response to death and disease. And you can see that reflected in the game too, right? Like, can you imagine the game of life today with there's a square in here where your player might commit suicide. There's a box here where you go to ruin, which you know, is sort of bankruptcy from which you don't recover. You know, so there's all sorts of sort of twists and turns in this story that we might view as extreme by the limits of family board games today.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, just something that just flashed through my mind, just to go back you mentioned about the political games. A woman named Jean Clark invented a game called Race for the Presidency, licensed it to Milton Bradley, and she was the first woman to license a game to a company. Just throw that in.
When was that, Richard?
That was 1888.
Okay, right. And Carlene's on this partly because she's a real expert on electricity and electrical items, and that's coming up in just a minute. Someone has noticed she's been particularly quiet. So anyway, 2 games here.
That's my role.
Not at all. Jump in, please. So 2 here. One is, these are travel games. So the first is 1939, Bob and Betty's Trip to the World's Fair. And then 1955, the Disneyland game. So 39, it's interesting, of course, hits right as World War II is breaking out. And it struck me, this is kind of coming out as a game exactly at a moment when people are not traveling. In 1955, Disneyland is coming out just as Disneyland is opening. And it feels like this game is intended to do the opposite. It's intended to get kids to love the game, to say to their parents, take me to Disneyland. But I'm curious if you have any other observations about these 2 games.
Well, of course, there was the Game of the States, was one of the oldest travel games in the United States. Remember Game of the States? I don't know, Ken, if you know anything about the history of that.
I don't know.
Neither do I. I'm asking you. I happen to have a copy of the first one. Maybe I'll give it to you one day, Arthur.
All right. All right, with that, we're going to jump to 1945 Candyland.
Well, Candyland was, of course, Candyland was invented by a lady who had polio, and she was in isolation in a hospital room, and invented it and licensed it to Milton Bradley.
And the game is striking. Actually, the date on that is wrong, I'm realizing, and I'm sorry. So I believe it's 48, and it really takes off starting in 49, 50. And, you know, the early 50s are a period during the polio scares when parents are genuinely afraid to let their kids play outside in the summertime. I mean, it was a disease that kind of came again in a seasonal wave, particularly hit young children. And so this is a game that is in some ways perfect for that post-World War II, kids, 3 to 5 years apart, because kids of different age can play this game and have equal chances of winning. So the older kid doesn't necessarily get an advantage.
And there's no reading.
Right. You don't have to know how to read. You're just either rolling dice or pulling colored slot cards and then jumping forward that many spaces. And yeah, that becomes one of the top selling games for decades, I believe.
By the way, this game uses a spinner. You find in very young games, in games aimed at very young children, they don't like to use dice. They like to use spinners.
Okay. So next up, I'm going to show two, we're coming up to the present here with the board game. So 1981 Trivial Pursuit, and then Advertising. So
let's go back to Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah.
Trivial Pursuit was the first adult social interactive game. It broke the chokehold at the time that the video games had on the industry. Everything was video games until this came along. And I have an interesting sidebar on this. Mel Taft, who was Senior Vice President of Research and Development at Milton Bradley, told me this story. He said, this was invented by three fellows up in Montreal. I think they all worked for a newspaper at the time. They created this game and they came down and they pitched it to Milton Bradley as one of the companies, as the premier board game company. And Mel said to me, here's why we didn't do it. We'd been doing games for 100 and so many years at the time, but we knew that adults didn't play board games. We knew that because we're Milton Bradley. We knew that no one was going to spend $25 or more on a board game. We knew that. We're Milton Bradley. And the other thing they knew was if people wanted to enjoy trivia, they could go buy a book. So they passed and ultimately went to a company called Sell, Chow and Writer down in New York, which was kind of on the balls of their feet. I mean, they were like teetering and they took a shot at it and the rest is history.
And advertising, Richard, you said was kind of the bookend of this kind of period.
Yeah, that was the start. Trivial Pursuit was the start. And the other major adult social interactive game at the time was our game of advertising, which I came up with sitting on my couch in Washington, reading the Washington Post about the 125th anniversary of Procter & Gamble. And I said to Cheryl, my wife, I started throwing out, you know, don't squeeze the Charmin, this, whatever, all their different look, mono cavities. And I said, I think this is a game. Of course, it was turned down by every single game company in the country turned it down. And about a year or so later, I sent it out to a company called Catico Games in Chicago. They did it. And I said to them, listen, I said, this isn't quite ready for prime time. And they said, you have a choice. You can sell a million Cadillacs or wait for a million Lincolns or wait for a Ford. I said, I kind of like Fords. And this game, again, the bookend, it sold 1.5 million copies right out of the gate. And then from there, the market was very saturated with these kinds of adult trivia-based games.
So somebody asked where a game like Pictionary fits into this sort of historical sequence.
Yeah, Pictionary was a great game. That was in there. That was invented by a former dishwasher in Seattle and a couple of his friends. All of these games, by the way, they come out of quote unquote garages. Do you know what I mean? If you look at all the great games, take hundreds of games, doesn't matter, toys and games, most of them were invented by independent inventors. They wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the company and the what I call the intrapreneurs inside the creative forces, because it takes a team to do all these things. But so many of these things came from just people like us, just people with a better idea and pitched it to a company and they made it happen.
Yeah, and it's a remarkable feature, in fact, of toys and games. And so people watching this, if you have an idea, you know, write it down and tinker with it, play with your kids and make it happen. It is one of the few industries that's genuinely open to people bringing new ideas forward. It quite a bit harder.
An insatiable appetite.
Yeah, it's quite a bit harder to kind of approach an automobile company with a new piece of idea versus a toy or game company.
Yeah, impossible.
All right,
Richard,
so we're going to shift gears again here and go back in time, and we're going to talk about the kind of parlor and the emergence of music. So Carlene, talk to us about what we're looking at here and how this shifted what people did at home.
Well, thanks. I'm happy to do that. It occurs to me that there may be people at this colloquium who don't know what a record is. From that standpoint, I think I'll spend a moment to describe what this is. This is a record player, a disc record player. It's a Victrola. It is an effort to make a portable record player, although the dimensions of it, it's basically 13 inches one way, 20 inches another way, 15, 16 inches another way. It takes a bit of heaving to move it around. It has a turntable, a 12-inch turntable that would have played a 10-inch disc record. It was made roughly between 19 1924, about 500,000 of these were sold. It's not rare. And if you look closely in the lid of the open version of the record player, you see the Victor logo, the RCA Victor dog speaking, listening to his master's voice. And if you're familiar with the NMAH these days, on the third floor, you see the Victor logo in terms of a stained glass window that was in Victor's headquarters in Camden about this time, 1915 is when the tower went up. So by this time, lots of these record players were around. Mostly disc records are more popular now than cylinder records. And the people who are buying these machines are mostly women for use at home. The appeal of these machines to women is to put everything into an enclosed cabinet to make it look like a piece of furniture. There is no external horn on this. It's inside, and that's why the doors open to give access to that horn. So all of this is calculated to get a machine like this into every home, every middle-class home. And you can have higher or lower versions of it. And by this time, millions of records are available. People watch for or listen for the most recent recordings. And about this time, 1919, is when the chokehold on the lateral groove records, the patents expire. And after that, there is an explosion of recording companies. That's when you're going to see lots more ethnic recording companies. You're going to see lots more jazz from Black performers and so forth and so on. But until about 1919, there is the big three are Columbia, Victor, and Edison. Edison actually is making discs by this time. So a record would have cost 75 cents to $1.25 at this time, and lots of people were buying them. They were looking for them, waiting for them. That's probably enough about that. One of the reasons that this period is so interesting is because there's an overlap. Pianos, the popularity of pianos, the ones you play yourself and the player pianos, has been steadily rising until about this time. And it's now, 1918, 1919, when the phonographs are starting to outsell the pianos. What you see here are examples from our collection, an appeal by Steinway on the left to put its very high-end pianos into family settings, like you see there, middle class, targeting middle class users. So a lot of homemade music in this period. If you couldn't make your own music, you could get a player piano, buy some rolls, and hear the latest hits that way. Sheet music sells really well at this time as well. And I think that's on the next slide, right?
Yeah, before we do that, we had a question asking whether records were always two-sided.
No, they weren't. They weren't always two-sided.
So that's
They started as one-sided and then they became two-sided.
Yeah, and some years ago, I had the good fortune of meeting the owner of a pin-making company that made needles for the early records.
Oh, wow.
Prior to World War II, the record needles were in fact steel and were often single use. So he showed me in company records an order for over 1 billion metal pins because they were used and then thrown away. So it's very interesting. People were switching out the needles. One other observation here, of course, the Steinway ad is showing a kind of, idealized Victorian household where, you know, the wife or the daughter is playing. But you also see, of course, a style shift from late Victorian, the piano in the middle, to the 1920s. It's become a much more slimmed down. The legs have gotten less ornate. You see kind of a shift in how people are thinking about furniture in the post-Victorian. But yes, to the sheet music, Carlene.
So the ad for the vamp illustrates perfectly this crossover moment where the same music is available to you for your piano, for your phonograph, or for your player piano on a roll. This was a big hit apparently in 1919. The intersection of the influenza pandemic and World War I really caught my attention. And the sheet music, of course, is from a military band, and I wanted to use this as the segue to the kind of activity for World War I that shows where this intersection with the pandemic and the war went on. What you're seeing here is a campaign to turn in underused sound recordings for use at the front. And if you were looking at the phonograph from our collection closely, you'll notice it's right there in the newspaper article, the illustration or the photograph on the far right. That's the same Victor Victrola. So it was portable in a certain sense. But anyway, this whole idea of collecting underused records to send to the military originated in a ban, a rationing of shellac. So shellac was used to make the records, and when that ban went on, not so many records could be produced, but it turned out that music is morale, in the words of one of the generals, and the soldiers were craving these records. So this campaign, the worst word you could use at the time was slacker. It was roughly the equivalent of a draft dodger. So if you had records that were slackers, you were urged, in this article by Dorothy Richardson from Ogden, Utah newspaper, you were urged to draft them and send them to this organization that would then send them on to the front. Well, the collection went on in 500 cities across the United States, and in October of 1918, and most of it was halted, temporarily at least, because of the pandemic. They couldn't actually get out and give their records up. The other intersection, if I could just tell you one more thing, this intersection between the phonograph and the pandemic was epitomized for me in a letter I found. It's a letter written in October of 1918 from a man named Harold Shaft to his parents. And he was drafted out of college, and instead of sending him to the front, he got sent to a military camp in Minot, North Dakota. And he writes to his parents, "We now have a convalescent ward with about 75 in it." In other words, everybody in this camp got sick from the flu. 2 phonographs, 400 magazines, and 6 game boards furnished the amusement. So that's where they all were, and that's what they were using. He also said, "We all wear masks all the time." and a ghostly procession we make marching to mass.
Very interesting. Carlene, we have a question whether, when did radio become common? Would families have listened to it during the pandemic and had sing-alongs?
Well, that's a very good question. Commercial radio does not happen until about 1922, 23, 24, 25. So it's after the pandemic, and families would not have had access to the radio at this time. And in fact, the radio would make a significant dent in both the piano industry and the phonograph industry.
Very good. So
if I could follow on that.
So please go ahead, Ken. Sorry.
So the question raises a great point about sort of earlier, if I can add sort of some earlier context to this. So during the cholera epidemics and some of the yellow fever outbreaks, theaters were closed in cities, which was where a lot of sort of gathering for these kinds of concert events happened in the early years of the Republic. And what basically happened was wealthy people who fled the city would then host house concerts, right? So sort of, obviously they didn't have the virtual technology, but there would be these house concerts, and they would be done on a benefit purpose. The degree to which that money actually went into helping people who were actually in need is somewhat debatable. But there were these house concerts where everybody would gather in a safer setting, removed from cities, to do this.
Yeah. So for our last 10 minutes, what I want to do is kind of cover a third kind of area I'm calling more interactive. And this goes from dolls to the digital interactive. And I mean, that's the loose category, but I want to show 3 dolls and then have you discuss the 3. So the first, these are obviously more recently made, but harken back to methods and approaches used from colonial, pre-colonial, up through the 19th century, of people in essence making their own dolls, corn husk dolls, to a set of die stamped toys associated with the Buffalo Bill show, and then one of our favorite artifacts in the museum, the creeping baby dolls, so the first mechanized dolls. So panelists, tell me which one of these you want to start with.
Arlene, why don't you start with the creeping baby dolls, because this leads, we can go backwards in time, but this really leads everything.
Well, what we have here are, on the left, a patent model, complete with its original patent tag and red tape tying it to the model. And then the commercial version on the right, fully dressed. The patent model was intended to accompany the patent submission. And in this case, the person applying for a patent was this George Pemberton Clark. And he gets a patent in 1871, August 17th, you can see it there on the tag, for what he called his natural creeping baby doll. There's nothing natural about this, in my view, but, and it is a phenomenon, this kind of mechanizing movement for dolls, for figures of all sorts. It's central. It's an expression of that period in the 19th century where everything was mechanizable. You could put gears and wind up anything, and there was a genuine attraction to this method of solving motion problems. I can't account for the fancy dress on the doll. It's just what dolls wore at the time. The internal mechanism is like the phonograph. It has a spring motor. You wind it up, and the thing goes until the power of the unwinding spring is gone. And then you have to wind it up again.
Let me give you a little tidbit on these patent models. I don't know the date, but in the beginning, when the patent office started up through whenever, maybe you all know, you had to have a model like this to get a patent. But then the patent office was, they couldn't accommodate any more models. So they stopped requiring models from inventors. So today you have to show your engineering drawings and whatever to get your patent, but they no longer require the examiner to look at a proving model.
And many of those patents from the earlier patent models have ended up at the Smithsonian.
Yes.
So we have large collections of those, including these creeping baby dolls.
Lucky you.
When Carlene first showed them to me, I had trouble sleeping that night. So I'm going to try to get over this time. So these things, obviously, I don't know. Carlene, do you know what the price point was on those? I feel like, I mean, obviously these are part of what the dress of the baby is showing you, right, is of a certain class and certainly a racial identity there that is sort of quote unquote pure white, right?
I don't know the price. The commercial model came in a box. That's all. The price might actually be on the box. I'll look it up.
But so these are targeting. I would almost certainly bet people of means. And the earlier examples, the previous two slides, are a little bit cheaper and more accessible. Of course, handmade dolls have been around for millennia. They're found on archaeology sites, going back thousands of years. So, there's a long history of all sorts of peoples creating dolls for either ritual purposes or for play purposes. And then the next one, these for me are important in a different kind of sort of chronology. So dolls had become gendered female, particularly in Anglo-American tradition over the course of the 1600s and 1700s. And they became very accessible with cheaper paper dolls that you may be familiar with or have heard of. These are die stamped, but they're hand cut and hand mounted. They came on a sheet from cigarette manufacturers, basically like baseball cards did, as sort of proof of purchase, prizes for having purchased the products. And then you could mount them and sort of recreate scenes from Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows. You're limited to some extent in terms of how you can recreate them because they're only painted on they're only colored on one side. So they have to face certain ways, so you can only arrange them in certain ways. But really, this is the leap from dolls being gendered as girls play in the 17th and 18th century towards action figures. This is sort of moving towards more violent, conquering, kind of scene play and reenactment and mimicry that evolves into three-dimensional action figures by the time you get to the 1920s and 1930s, and especially World War II with the little green soldiers that you may also be familiar with.
So the second product we did was a quote unquote action figure, but I didn't know anything about the toy industry. So when I pitched it to Parker Brothers, they said, well, what do you have? And I said, well, I have a doll for boys. And they said, well, we don't do dolls, but you said for boys? And I said, yeah. They said, you mean an action figure? I said, is that what they call it? Sure, an action figure. And they bought it.
So we only have a few minutes left, but since we have Richard on this, I do want to jump ahead to the Furby and just bring back memories.
We call it the beloved creature. So how far do you want me to go on this, Arthur? I mean, this is an example, by the way, of a mechanism which probably had its birth way back with those mechanical wind-up toys, and then the integration of electronics with it. This was inspired, my partner Dave, who's an electronic genius, this was inspired by the Tamagotchi. Do you remember the Tamagotchi? Where you fed this little character and you wouldn't let it die, and they're ultimately banned in schools. And this was basically inspired as a three-dimensional Tamagotchi. I could go on and on about the Furby, but I don't know what we have time-wise, but that's...
We're tight on time. We do have a question, which was back to the creeping dolls. Sorry, just how big are they and who played with them? I mean, Ken kind of commented on that, but...
Well, I guess I could say something about the dimension. It's about 1 foot long and about 6 inches high, maybe 8 inches high. It's quite small. And I cannot imagine a small child playing with it. There are sharp edges, undressed, and delicate clothing dressed. And it might have seemed like a good idea in the context of let's animate a small creature. But the idea that somebody actually would play with it, I find really difficult to imagine. It's kind of like Edison's talking doll. The first use of the commercial phonograph is inside the torso of this 3 foot tall giant doll and it was just too delicate to use. So I would love to know who played with it.
We call those in today's vernacular watch me toys.
Yes.
Right. So
Instead of play with me toys.
we're going to go just a couple minutes over, everyone. So hang with us. I see we still have a solid 150 people with us. Richard, on the Furby, I mean, you've told the story many times. People can Google it. But a question, who was the target for this? Was this really ungendered, like boys and girls?
Excellent question. So of course it was girls mostly, but we thought it was young girls. And then one day the president of Tiger Electronics called me up and he said, I'm going to do a contest. And I said, what's the contest? He says, I want to see if people know who the primary audience for this is, because they were getting back in those days cards from consumers. They'd send in cards. And it wound up that the key demographic for it in the beginning, women 21 and over. They were falling in love with it. We have videos of them going into like FAO and places and falling in love with the eyes. They'd buy one for themselves, one for their child. But that was I'm not sure anybody guessed that. I'm not sure anybody won that competition.
So that's interesting that you can have your target demographic for a toy or game and it may turn into something different.
And it was also a companion to older people. It was a companion to older people. And sometimes people would come into Tiger and say, my Furby died. And they'd say, okay, we'll give you another one. And they'd go, no. This is my Furby. I want this. You can give me another one, but I want this one. And people were burying them, like with ceremony.
Wow.
Quite an interesting, we're so blessed with this toy. It's just amazing. It still goes on today.
And we see here, by the way, for people, we see multiple generations of the Furby because it came out in different generations and 2 generations of the Levy family at the same time. I want to close out with 2 final things. One, the brain bolt, which brings us to the current pandemic. So, Richard, do you want to comment about this one?
So we did a game called Brain Bolt. Here it is. It's basically a train your memory, visual memory game where kind of Simon-esque, where you have to go through, I can't see this now, but you go through, there's 20, you try to reach 21. And it was kind of chugging along, and then the pandemic hit. And it became 2 things. One, a boredom buster. And while it was aimed at children originally, it's taken off with senior citizens. Physicians are recommending it. It's really a terrific challenge for your brain, again, following light sequences. And every day, my partner Brad and I go on to Amazon and just watch the reviews go. It is now the second best-selling product at Educational Insights. And it's really because people are isolated, I believe. I think that has a great effect on it.
Yeah, and it's intriguing to think that we can, in the future, hopefully design games that are intentionally there to stimulate people's brains and help reduce, the mass phenomenon that we're seeing of age onset dementia in various forms.
Now that's getting a lot of great recommendations in that area.
Yeah, but again, I mean, that's a long ways away in terms of actually medically proving something, but it's still intriguing. Again, people playing alone, there are more and more opportunities. And I want to close with this and invite any of the panelists to speak to it. So what you see here is a 13-year-old, it happens to be my daughter, attending a concert through the Nintendo Switch. She's purchased wings, which is to say her dad, for $4.99 or whatever it was, bought the digital wings you saw, and then at the concert was able to go with friends. So, you know, a group of 100, as you did in Fortnite, went in, but then she's kind of flying around from friend to friend. They're chatting, they're engaging. So, I mean, how different is that from past pandemics for kids? Is this radically different? Is it just kind of a virtual version of what we've always seen historically? I'm interested in where we have continuity, where we have something quite different.
I think it's a virtual, you know. I think the other thing, by the way, the pandemic is doing is it's bringing people back into the parlor. You know, where they're not just staring into a screen, but they're communicating across the kitchen table as a family.
One of the things that I wonder, if your daughter had been alive 100 years ago and she had to stay home, I wonder if she would have had any time at all to do something, the 1918 equivalent of this. The little bits and pieces that I've been able to put together about home life in 100 years ago was that if somebody was at home and they were there because of the influenza, they were either sick themselves or taking care of someone who was sick or doing chores for someone who was sick. And so the idea that there is all this leisure to be had, I think has changed quite a bit over the last century. And I don't mean to be such a Debbie Downer at this point, and remind people that there is an illness behind all of this. But I think the big shift is the amount of leisure that we're seeing.
And the accessibility. So, you know, as I mentioned before, in sort of in the early 19th century, you know, there were people who would party during a pandemic who weren't sick. They were people who were wealthy enough to get out of town and have an estate and have that sort of buffer of safety, and essentially a whole cadre of peers who were in similar situations. And that still exists today. But even if you can't do that now, there are a variety of technologies and time that afford that option. So a teenager of a wealthy family in 1918 might well have been able to have a little house concert with their friends in person, of course, not necessarily virtually, or talk about or you know, play the phonograph and have a shared music moment. But now there are still issues of access, but they are less, and the technology penetrates some of those inequalities.
So that's a very powerful way to end. I really want to thank our panelists. We thank everyone who attended and invite you to join us for our next colloquium in this series, which is on November 3rd, Voting During a Pandemic. Welcome you back for that. And this video will be posted shortly, and invite everyone to watch it again.